New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And good morning, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you here on a Saturday morning. It's 9 a.m. on the Mountain Time Zone, and that means it is time for our Saturday Science of Mind and Spirit Conversation Series. Big, long name. If you just watch the intro video, you know what we're all about. You're studying the science of mind, and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 21, some phases of the subjective life. However, before we do that, I want to give a big, huge shout out to Rev Dr Mark Gilbert for last week, and his exploration of Chapter 20, which is one of my favorites, by the way. What the mystics have taught was just exemplary. Go check it out. If you didn't watch last week, go check it out. Good morning, Shay. Good to see you, dear one. Thanks for being with us. Grateful you're with us. Anyone else that's out there watching, feel free to drop a hello in the chat box. Feel free to chat along, chime along, ask questions as we go, and there it is. You're welcome to participate. I personally would love to have you participate this morning. And we're going to be studying some phases of the subjective life, pages 347 to 356. We're getting near the end of the book when it comes right down to it. We've only got a couple more weeks of actual content, and then we hit the summaries, and then by the end of July, we're done with this book completely. And at that time, we step into the Science of Mind archives. Things get a little more esoteric, I guess I want to say, in that we have the ability, people have the ability to choose anything they want from the archives to share. Brother Dr. Raymond Anderson, namaste and greetings, my brother. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. You jumped into my mind yesterday on an idea, and I've been meaning to reach out to you since, yesterday. Maybe it was the day before that I got the idea, but I'll reach out. All right. So some phases of the subjective life. Number one, just the fact that it says some means there might be others, but we're only going to talk about this. And there is a lot in this chapter. So I want to dive straight in. The subjective mind. And this is on page 347 of the textbook. We've already seen that what we call the soul is really the subjective part of us. We wish to look a little further into some of the phenomena of the soul. So keep that in mind. Anytime that Holmes is talking about the human subjective, we could just as easily import and exchange the word soul there. All right, so he begins. We do not have two minds, but we do have a dual aspect of mentality in what we call the objective and subjective states of consciousness. The objective mind is the part of the mentality which functions consciously. It is the part of us which is self-knowing, and without it, we would not be self-conscious entities. Our conscious mind is the place where we consciously live and are aware that we are living. This is spirit. Our subjective mind is our mental emanation in universal subjectivity. It is our individual use of mental law. We certainly do not wish to deviate from that which psychology teaches about the mind in its conscious, subconscious, or subjective states. Here's the important part. We merely wish to add this aspect. So he's saying we still want to use traditional psychology's experience of or understanding of the conscious, subconscious, and subjective states, but we want to add that the reason we have a subjective mind is that subjectivity, with a capital S, meaning divine subjectivity, exists in the universe prior to our use of it. And where we use it, it forms around us a subjective personification of ourselves, which is a result of the action and the reaction of our thoughts. We are 350 pages into this text, and Holmes is still teaching us the same things he was teaching us in the first 50 pages of this text. I love it. It is so much fun to find another reminder, another way of saying it, another way of bringing us to a greater truth. Roy Chavez. Thank you, Roy. Good to see you, sir. All the way from Fort Morgan. Glad you're with us today. So again, we're on chapter 21. We're at the bottom of page 347, and we got a long way to go. So let's talk for a moment about some of the terminology. I do this more and more, right? If you're following along in a copy of the book, you're going to see male pronouns, male-centric pronouns. I do my best to gender neutralize everything we do as I say it. And it's not that hard. It just, sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to cognize the idea. But what I love about that is it also gives us a little more time to be with the idea. Making sense? Anita, pick and paw. I'm going to go with that all the way from Plano, Texas. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Glad you're here. We're studying the Science of Mind textbook, so thank you for being a part of it. All right, so continuing on an explanation of terminology. In this next section on page 348 is titled Race Suggestion. And in his day, Holmes and others, he's not the only one, but others, used an idea, a term, race mind. And what they were speaking to is a collective consciousness of humanity. However, in today's languaging, and to walk around trying to say, oh, that's race mind, it brings up a lot of questions and a lot of explanations because people jump to some conclusions when we use some of those terminologies. So myself and many of my colleagues and many of us across the New Thought movement have changed this language to collective suggestion or the collective mind, the collective consciousness. So collective suggestion is a real thing, and each individual carries around with them many impressions which never consciously thought of or experienced. We are carrying with us impressions which we never consciously thought of or experienced. When we realize that the individual subjectivity is our use of the one subjective mind, we shall see that a subjective unity is maintained between all people. So we all draw from this one collective mind. Makes sense to me. One power, one presence, one intelligence. There's one spiritual subjective everything, and that has been in that one subjectivity there is everything that has ever happened to anyone anywhere along the entire history of human consciousness. Yeah, it gets pretty big, I know. This gets pretty heady. We shall see that a subjective unity is maintained between all people, and that individual mentalities who are in sympathetic vibration with each other. That sounds like me and my wife, me and various friends, close friends, people we really get along with. The individual mentality, me, and who I am in a sympathetic vibration with each other, more or less mingle and receive suggestions from each other. This is why people that have been in long-term relationships finish each other's sentences all the time. This is the meaning of mental influence, which is indeed a very real thing. Now, he goes on to give us some examples and explain a little bit more about why he believes this, but he comes down on 349 to this last sentence on the first paragraph of this section. There is a tendency on the part of all of us to reproduce the accumulated subjective experience of the human experience, of the human consciousness. There is a tendency on the part of all of us to reproduce. What's that old saying? Those who don't learn from history are destined to repeat it. We have this tendency to fall into what's easy. We have a tendency to fall into what everybody else is doing. And I know many of us just heard our one of our parents saying, well, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? Hey, maybe, because of our subjective tendencies. We might go along with it. And then if enough people go along with an idea, with a belief system, doesn't mean it has to be true or beneficial. But if enough people go along with that, we have a collective consciousness that grows. And we are going to realize in this chapter, what Holmes helps us to remember is we are always in the midst of experiencing the revelation, the reflection, the demonstration of humanity's collective consciousness. Now it's gonna sub down. We're gonna break that down from a global to a national to a regional to a state to a community to a city to a neighborhood to a family. But we can't escape the part that we're part. We can't look beyond the fact that we're part of all of it. So the subjective mind and inspiration. Since this individual subjective mind is the storehouse of memory, it retains all that the eye has seen, the ear heard, or the mentality conceived. Since it contains much that the outer human never consciously knew, and is the receptacle of much of the collective knowledge through unconscious communication, it must and does have a knowledge that far surpasses the objective faculties. There is so much more to this subjective mind than what I can possibly know as an individual. Realizing that the subjective draws to itself everything that it is in sympathy with, there's that vibrational alignment again. We see that anyone who is sympathetically inclined towards the collective or vibrates to the collective consciousness might pick up the entire collective emotion and experience. And if they were able to bring it to the surface, could consciously depict it. Stay with us. You know where we're headed. Many of the world's orators, actors, and writers have been able to do this. It explains why some of them have been so erratic, for they have been more or less controlled by the emotions which they've contacted. Anyone contacting the subjective side of the collective mentality, this is where we get good, folks. Dig in. Anyone contacting the subjective side of the race mentality, of the collective mentality, with the ability to bring it to the surface, will have at their disposal an emotional knowledge that many lifetimes of hard study could not accumulate. Now, this is starting to sound a little like the Akashic Records, yes? Does to me. However, 349, the very last few words, and over into 340. But if one had to surrender their individuality in the progress, they would be better remain ignorant. So what he's saying is anyone has the ability, if we desire, to bring forth the collective everything. Now we're talking about channeling. To bring to the surface will have at their disposal an emotional knowledge that many lifetimes of hard work could not accumulate. However, do not risk our individuality. Do not give up who you are. If we have to give up our individuality, Holmes says it would be better to remain ignorant of that truth. There is, of course, a much deeper seat of knowledge than the subjective mind, which is spirit, and direct contact with the capital S spirit is illumination. I like here, and that Holmes could have easily used the term enlightenment, but he didn't. It is illumination. And to me, they are subtly different ideas. They're subtly different ideas between enlightenment and illumination. I believe we are all already enlightened. However, some of us have turned down that light. And the illumination is the turning up of the light that was always there. It was never dimmed. It was never darkened. You were never, but we turn it up. And it requires, and this is one of the themes of the science of mind throughout all of New Thought, in my opinion, is it requires a deep contact, a deep sense of contact, a deep relationship with the indwelling presence of the One. We say it in so many ways. I forget where it is, and maybe it's in this phrase, and maybe we'll find it. But everyone may be a revealer of truth that lives in a close indwelling contact with the divine, with God. Mental atmospheres. Each person has a mental atmosphere which is the result of all that they have thought, said, and done, and consciously or unconsciously perceived. Whoa! What? And here is where we can kind of get into a little bit of where over time, I think many practitioners in this philosophy have lost a little touch with. Each person has a mental atmosphere which is a result of all that they have thought, said, and done, and consciously or unconsciously perceived. The mental atmosphere is very real and is that subtle influence which constitutes the power of personal attraction. For personal attraction has but little to do with looks. It goes so much deeper and is almost entirely subjective. This will explain our likes and dislikes for those with whom we come in daily contact. We meet some only to turn away without a word, while others we are at once drawn to, and without any apparent reason. This is the result of their mental atmosphere or thought vibration. No matter what the lips may be saying, the inner thought outspeaks them, and the unspoken word often carries more weight than the spoken. Tuning in. I just want that to sit there. Mental atmosphere. We've all walked into rooms and said, no, not this. I very clearly remember walking into a restaurant one afternoon with a friend of mine, and everything was perfect until I crossed, and not even for him, but just for me, crossed the threshold of that building, and nope, I am not eating here. It wasn't a smell, it wasn't a sight, it was a knowing. And I trust we have all had these. So part of what Holmes reminds us is that we don't cause everything that happens in our lives, but what we do cause and what we do bring into our lives is a collective of all of this. So tuning in on thought. The bottom of page 350, he starts to talk about telepathy. Telepathy is the act of reading subjective thought or of receiving conscious thought from another without audible words being spoken. There's been a lot of talk in New Thought over the years of psychics and psychism, and we're about to tread deeply into that water for some moments. And I believe that when we have a deeper understanding of how Holmes presents the subjective mind, we do come to a quick realization that we can't discount any of this, of what comes. We just can't. We can't disprove any of this because we have example of almost of all of it. Quick shout out to Brother Wayne. Morning, Wayne. Glad you're with us, sir. So glad you're with us. All right. Telepathy is the act of reading subjective thought or of receiving conscious thought from another without audible words being spoken. But there must be a mental tuning in, so to speak, just as there must be in a radio. We are surrounded by all sorts of vibrations, and if we wish to catch any of them distinctly, we must tune in. Even then, there's a great deal of interference, and we do not always get the message clearly. We often get the wrong ones, and sometimes many of the vibrations come together and seem to be nothing but a lot of noises, without any particular reason for being. It is only when the instrument is properly adjusted to some individual vibration that a clear message may be received. Boy, we could talk about YouTube for hours on that line, huh? Or any of our social media channels right now. And people talk about the algorithm. All these different tech companies do something a little different. But ultimately, what we're doing is exactly what he's talking about. We're tuning in. Because if you don't like cat videos, you're not going to watch cat videos. And if you give a thumbs down to a cat video, they're not going to show you very many cat videos. And if you don't watch cat videos, then the whole concept of cat videos is going to fall out of your consciousness, and you won't see them in your feed. They won't be offered to you. This is not some great tech thing. This is the divine working on our behalf to give us a picture of exactly what it is that we're tuning into. It is only when the instrument is properly adjusted to some individual vibration that a clear message may be received. What are we tuning into? Healthy relationships? Are we tuning into financial prosperity? Are we tuning into a revelation of divine truth? Are we tuning into the subjective collective of a coaching client that we're sitting with? Are we tuning into the doom and the gloom that says everything's horrible and it's a rotten, no good day? Are we tuning into the vibrations that say here is a path, here is a way, here is a collective of people that are coming together both physically and virtually to develop an intentional vibration of love and compassion and prosperity and joy and light, all of it. Some have the ability to tune in on thought and read it more or less accurately. Again, who's ever been to a psychic? These people we call psychics. Oh, there it was, sorry. But all people are really psychic since all have soul or subjective mind. Some tune in and make it their sole focus to communicate beyond the veils of the human experience, of the human witness. However, what they're doing is they're tapping into this subjective mind. They're tapping into the allness and the everything of all experience across all time and shape, and saying, I want to know about this person right here in front of me. And the divine mind says, and the capital S subjective mind says, yeah, here you go. Here's what you need to know. Some have the ability to tune in on thought and read it more or less accurately. These people we call psychics, but all people are really psychics, since all have a soul or a subjective mind. What we really mean is that a psychic or medium is one who has the ability to objectify that which is subjective, to bring to the surface of conscious thought that which lies below the threshold of the outer mind. The medium reads the book of remembrance, and it is marvelous how far-reaching this book may be. Oh, there's the Akashic Records again, huh? Start to see how all this comes together. And Holmes was teaching us way back then, we don't need a mediator. You do not need me to intercede between you and the divine. You do not need me to tell you what the divine wants you to know. You do not need a practitioner to be an intermediary. Now, you might want some help in learning how to tune your mind, and that's where practitioners and ministers and other leaders come into play. But if you have to use them and them alone to manifest, to demonstrate, that's a misuse of this philosophy. Every one of us has the ability to tune in and use these principles. Whatever may have happened at any time on this plane remains within its subjective atmosphere as a memory picture of the experience of those who have lived here. These pictures or vibrations may be clearly discerned by those who can read them. And again, the promise is always that anyone can learn how to read them, how to read these pictures. Since the universal subjectivity, page 351 at the last paragraph, and this is capital lettered universal subjectivity. Since the universal subjectivity is a unity, it follows that all of these pictures exist at any and every point within it. There is no time or space. Yes, Roy, that is what I am saying. We do not need Jesus to be a mediator to God. I am saying that clearly. I will say it again and again and again. A great example? Absolutely. The great exception? Nope. And he said that in his own words. I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm not going to try and quote Jesus here. Although some of you know, I have been enamored with the television series The Chosen, and oh my gosh, we're in the 5th season, and we've overturned the tables, and life's, and if we know how it ends. So, but it's good because it helps us to see that those teachings have been subverted, to believe that God only speaks through the Pope or through a cardinal or through Jesus. Anyone may be a revealer of truth that lives in close contact with the indwelling spirit. Since the universal subjectivity is a unity, it follows that all of these pictures exist at any and every point within it. Consequently, we make contact at the point of our own subjective mind, which is a point in the universal subjective mind. Parentheses there. We want to remember that. Consequently, we make contact at the point of our own subjective mind, every incident which has ever transpired on this planet. Huh? What? This is pretty deep. And logically, it makes sense to me. Yes, correct, Roy. Or the Mormon prophet. Anyone that says they are the only way, anyone that says they alone are talking to God, anyone that says they alone are the only avenue of revelation, I would run from. Because what all great religions truly teach is that we are all the prophet. We are all the Buddha. We are all the Messiah. We are all Jehovah. We are all Muhammad. We have all of that. And we have always been that. Because there is no time or space in the mind of the divine. There is no time or space in any of this. We make that part up. And this is part of what he's saying here, right? The universal subjectivity is a unity that allows for everything to exist beyond time and space in this subjective field. And you and I have the opportunity, the ability, everyone on this planet has the ability to tap into that field of everything and say, I want to know this. And we might even see a picture when it happened years ago. Think of the Matrix. One of the key principles of the movie The Matrix and the movie series The Matrix is that the operators can plug in Neo and Morpheus and Trinity. They can plug in, and a computer operator can send them the information on what they need to know. Think of Trinity in the helicopter. She doesn't know how to fly a helicopter. At her experience, she does not have that, but she is able to tap into the knowledge of all, the wisdom of everything. And through this computer trick, we're able to download that into Trinity, and she's immediately able to fly the helicopter. We have the reservoir of all wisdom and knowledge sitting in front of us. This is how we're communicating today. So let's keep going. Each person in their objective state is a distinct and individualized center in universal mind. But in this subjective state, in this stream of consciousness, or at a rate of vibration, each is universal. Because of the indivisibility of mind, wherever and whenever any individual contacts another upon the subjective side of life, if they are psychic, if they objectify subjectivity, they may see a thought form of that person, but it does not necessarily follow that he would really be seeing the person. We need not be astonished when a psychic gives us the complete history of our family, even to reciting the things that engaged the attention of our ancestors while they were on the planet. The psychic is merely reading from the subjective remembrance. And we all have the ability to do this. Each individual, we're going to continue on to streams of consciousness because we have a lot to do still, and it's only in 3 pages, and we got about 15 minutes. Each being an individual entity in mind is known by the name they bear and by the vibration which they emanate. For while we are all in one mind or spirit, each has a separate and individualized personality. This is why I believe you call people by what they want to be called by. I've seen a great cartoon out there of a mother that says, we give our children a name so that we understand who they are until they are old enough to tell us what their true name is. Time. Whoop, there it is. Okay. According to the unity of mind, thought is everywhere present. And so long as it persists, it will remain present. What is known in one place may be known in all places. Time, space, and obstructions are unknown to mind, capital M mind, that's divine, and will enter into our and thought. It follows that anyone tuning into our thought will enter into our stream of consciousness, no matter where we are and no matter where he may be. If we still persist after the body shall have suffered physical death, and we are convinced that we shall, this law must still hold good. For past, present are one and in the same divine mind. Time is only the measure of an experience, and space of itself is not apart from, but is in mind. The psychic can enter the stream of thought of anyone whose vibration he can mentally contact, be that person in the flesh or out of it. And since we are all psychic, all having a soul element, we are all doubtlessly communicating with each other to the degree that we are sympathetically vibrating towards each other. It's one big happy psychic party. So yeah, you can talk to a relative that has left the body temple and gone beyond, if you're in a psychic vibration with that person. And how do we find that person in our experience again? We set an intention to line up psychically and in a vibration with these. There it is. Now, he does say, we do not all have the ability to objectify psychic impressions, to make a psychic impression an object. It's an easy way to remember it, right? I have an object, objective, versus we're studying a subject. We do not all have the ability to objectify psychic impressions, and ordinarily they never come to the surface. However, they are there just the same. And this is why we often feel uneasy in the presence of certain people, or when we mentally contact some condition and are aware of a disturbing inner feeling without any real apparent reason. It's not like these things, it's not like our dead relatives are saying, hey, pick me, I got to be heard, I got to be heard. They're there when we reach out. All of this wisdom is there when we reach out. There are many normal psychics who can, while in a perfectly objective state, reads people's thoughts and perform many other wonderful feats of the mind. This is what we now call reading the room, or a cold reading the room. This is normal and no harm can come from it. It is indeed one of nature's ways of working and is most interesting. Any psychic power which can be used while in a normal state of mind is harmless and helpful. But by this, we mean one that can be used while one is in a conscious state. And where Holmes takes us is that we have the spirit of prophecy within us. This section here, just about every part of it from here to the end is well, I'm going to dig in and we're going to read what we can because it's important. To me, this is the juiciness of it. We have explained how it is that the psychic vision can look into the past and see what has transpired. By reason of the fact that it is dealing with a field in which there is no past, no present, no future, but merely a continuation of being. Again, a lot of people are now using the term Akashic records for this concept. We don't have to. You can if you like. Because this is so, any incident which has transpired in the past is an active thing in the present unless the vibration is neutralized. This is where this is the healing. We have to neutralize the vibration. Because this is so, an incident which has transpired in the past is an active thing in the present unless the vibration is neutralized when it no longer has existence anywhere. Just as it is true, apparently, that the incidences of the past continually rehearse themselves in the same manner that a picture hanging on a wall for the next 10,000 years will look just the same as it does now, so long as no one interferes. So anyone contacting a previous incident clairvoyantly will see it as though it were now transpiring and not in the past. This is the way in which clairvoyant vision operates. The continuation of the past through the present into the future is a movement of causation passing from cause to effect. And because the movement is first set in motion in a field of mind which is purely subjective, you can read this with me, right? Both cause and effect will exist at any point during the sequence of this movement. The clairvoyant vision then, contacting it at any point, even before the final outcome, will see the final outcome. Had a vision. And in many ways, this is the theoretical basis of a visioning process, that we can tap in and we can see the future. It's only what we call the future. But you hear it in religious science circles, right? The divine mind, in the divine mind, it's already done. It's already done in the mind of the one. Now, this doesn't mean predestination. It just means that we can see the potentiality that is in front of us, as long as we continue along the same course of cause and effect and belief. But we can change that at any time as well. Both cause and effect will exist at any point during the sequence of this movement. The clairvoyant vision then, contacting it at any point, even before the final outcome, will see the final outcome. There is nothing fatalistic about this. A thing can appear to be fatalistic without necessarily being so. This we should understand, because the human mind is in its ignorance has created great psychic laws for itself. Therefore, if one has been told anything in the way of a prophecy which is negative, it should be directly refuted, because that negation exists in the realm of subjective causation, not spiritual causation. To repeat, this is a clearer way. Subjective mind can deduce only. It has no power to initiate or self-choice, and is compelled by its very nature to retain all the suggestions it receives. Again, we're not predestined here. The best illustration of this is in the creative soil, in which the gardener plants his seed. The soil does not argue nor deny, but goes to work on the seed and begins to create a plant which will represent the type of manifestation inherent as idea in the seed. We get cucumbers or we get tomatoes. We don't get cabbage from tomato seeds. Always the law maintains the individuality of the seed as it creates the plant. Never does it contradict the right of the seed to be what it really is. I might have thought that was a package of tomato seeds, but I actually planted cucumbers. And then when the plant comes up and it doesn't look like a tomato plant, but it looks like cucumbers, I start to wonder. But the reality was always the same. The truth was always there. The cucumbers were the seed. Involved within the seed is the idea of the plant, as are also those lesser ideas which are set or which are to act as a medium between the seed and the plant. Involved within the seed are both cause and effect, but the seed must first be placed within the creative soil if we wish to see the plant. In the creative soil, seed or in the soil, the full and perfect idea of the plant must exist as a complete thing, else it could never be brought into manifestation. The idea is already there. I don't see it, but I can tap into seeing it. The idea of a full-grown plant must exist somewhere in the seed and the soil if it is ever going to materialize. This teaches us a lesson in subjectivity. Thoughts going into the subjective are like seeds. They act through the creative medium of mind and must have within themselves the full power to develop and express. But how could they express unless they were already known to divine mind, to capital M mind? They could not. So mind must view the thought as already completed in the thing, and the mind must also contain the avenue through which the idea is to be expressed. Every thought sets the fulfillment of its desire in motion and mind sees the thing as already done. Can I interrupt that? Yes, absolutely. Can I question my thoughts and send that tumbling off the rails? Yes, absolutely. We do it all the time. But we don't have to. Mental tendencies set in motion cast their shadows before, and a psychic often sees the complete manifestation of an idea before it has had time to materialize in the objective world. This is what constitutes the average spirit of prophecy. For prophecy is the reading of subjective tendencies and seeing them as already accomplished facts. Wow. The subjective mind can deduce only, but its power of logic and sequence appears to be perfect. Reading a subjective tendency and seeing it as already the fact. This to me is the visioning process. This to me is it's right here. And we can do it in other ways. And that's why I personally have started to expand what I call the visioning process into meditative inquiry. Many of you have heard me use those terms. And in meditative inquiry, it's not the same series of questions. However, it is in the intention behind various questions and a commitment to those individual questions rather than trying to get it all at once. Mental tendencies set in motion cast their shadows before, and a psychic often sees the complete manifestation of an idea before it has had time to materialize in the objective world. Prophecy is the reading of subjective tendencies and seeing them as already accomplished facts. The subjective mind can deduce only, but its power of logic and sequence appears to be perfect. For illustration, let's get a story. Suppose there is a window 1 mile out. I'm throwing a ball at this window, and the ball is halfway to it, going at the rate of 1 mile a minute. Oh my God, I don't think I can throw a ball a mile. Now you come to the picture. You come into the picture. See the ball, measure the distance, compute the speed by which the ball is passing through the air, and say the ball is halfway to the window. It is traveling at a rate of 1 mile a minute, and in just 1/2 of a minute, the window is going to be broken by the ball passing through it. Let us suppose that you are the only one who sees the ball, for everyone else is looking at the window, and in 1/2 a moment, it is broken. How did you prophesize that the window would be broken? By drawing a logical conclusion from an already established premise. A similar thing takes place when a psychic exercises their spirit of prophecy because they're getting into their own subjective contact with the condition and simply interpreting what comes to them. But this is the logical, deductive, conclusive power of subjective thought, seeing a thing completed. By first seeing a tendency set in motion and computing the time it will take to complete them. There are but few, however, who possess any reliable spirit of prophecy. And that is where I think Holmes sets his own limitation in this chapter. He claims there are but few that can prophesize accurately. And I believe that that was the limitation of the day. Because Holmes continues throughout his work and long past when he wrote these words to teach everyone how we may become an accurate prophet, to speak with a prophetic voice, to touch the subjective in a way and bring forward into the human realm the beauty and the peace, the idea, what's necessary for us to live the promised life. Next week, Reverend Barbara Jean's going to be with us. She's going to speak on Finding the Christ, chapter 22. And I'm going to tell you, hold on to your hats, because you would not. Takes me 2 hours to get through that chapter. We're going to see how she does that. But I invite you this week, spend some time with these pages. Spend some time with this chapter. We've been at this for about 45 minutes now, and I know we run through these chapters quick because it is so rich, and there are so many ways we can dig in and experience this and reflect upon this and look at this as, wow, yeah, that's how it happened in my life, or that's how it is happening in my life, or that is where I'm moving. I fully believe that as more and more of us come to live the New Thought philosophy, not just understand it, not just celebrate it on Sundays at a church, but come into a deeper indwelling contact with that divine source, then we become the ones we say we've been waiting for. Then we let go of our own little limitations, and we open up to a greater understanding that every one of us, you, me, every one of us, doesn't matter what it looks like, doesn't matter what our earthly challenges are, doesn't matter what our human conditions are. We are each emanations of the divine. We are each revelations of the divine. Good to see you, Linda. We all have the ability to, and at any moment, only a few are open to the abilities and fewer consciously see them or use them. Yes. But that is changing. And what we're doing here with New Thought Media Network and what other New Thought organizations around this planet are doing is supporting people in coming to a greater understanding in some way of all of this truth, of this great and promising philosophy. Because what I've learned is if it doesn't look like what you want it to in your life right now, well, the most important thing is to keep moving forward. To keep moving forward in consciousness. To keep living in that place that remembers and that reminds ourselves. Thank you, Shay. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being a part of what's happening in consciousness. Thank you for continuing to show up for yourself. Many of you have heard me say this, and I'll say it again because I have just another minute or two left. This all starts with ourselves. And the personal journey is never fully, I believe, complete until we cast off this body temple. The human journey, we are forever on that human journey. And I strive to be all that and more. I strive to be the Christ consciousness in every moment. And humanly, I sometimes fail. But the spirit within me never does. And I just keep tapping in and reaching into that subjective record. I keep tapping in and allowing myself to be a revelation so that my earthly experience is supported and called forward and uplifted. We're all the great revealers. And it is a great honor to be with you. Thank you, Roy. Thanks for the shout out. Love you, brother. I'm going to get out of here for now, folks. Please stay with us for, tune in again next week. The Christ Consciousness with Reverend Barbara Jean. I promise it's going to be a good lesson next Saturday. So tune in for that. And tune into all of our Sunday programming. Tomorrow, so many talks, so much great stuff that happens here on New Thought Media Network. Drop into the YouTube page. It's the best way to find us, and to see what's going on live is right there on our YouTube page. If you've gotten value out of today's conversation, please consider making a donation over at our website, www.ntmedia.org. Click on the donate button and make it a monthly donation if you would. Make it a recurring donation. It goes a long way to helping us share this message out into the world, helping us to get this message into the eyes and the ears and the hearts of people everywhere. So whether you're a new student just joining us, or whether you've been around for a while, or whether you have a greater understanding of this than even I do, we're all part in this together. So I really do appreciate every donation that comes in to help make this network go. My name's Dr. Robert. I'm going to get out of here for now. I love you, but that's what I really want you to know. I love you. I think you're amazing. And until next time, I wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.